He didn't mislead Parliament. That's what he says. But here's the thing, the documents tell a completely different story. And today, we're going to go through them, line by line. Because what happened with Peter Mandelson isn't just a political embarrassment. It's a window into how this Prime Minister actually operates when things go wrong. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why even members of his own party are now calling for him to go. Let's start with the basics, because a lot of people covering this story assume you already know who Mandelson is. You might not. And that context matters enormously. Peter Mandelson is one of the most powerful figures in British political history. He was the architect of New Labour in the 1990s. He served under Tony Blair. He was forced to resign from cabinet, twice, over separate scandals. He was later made a Lord. He is also someone who, for years, maintained a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender who died in prison in 2019. Now, that relationship was publicly known before Starmer appointed him as Britain's ambassador to Washington in late 2024. Let that sink in for a moment. This wasn't hidden information. The Epstein connection was in the newspapers. It was discussed. And Starmer appointed him anyway. Why? We'll get to that. But first, the vetting. Here's where the story gets really damaging. In January 2025, before Mandelson flew to Washington to take up his post, he went through the UK's official security vetting process, called developed vetting, the highest level of clearance in the British government. He failed it. The UK Security Vetting Agency, an independent body, recommended that Mandelson should not be given clearance. Now, what happened next is the key question. And this is where the two accounts completely fall apart. According to Starmer, nobody told him. He claims he only found out last week, more than a year after the fact. But Ollie Robbins, the top civil servant at the Foreign Office who has since been sacked by Starmer, told a parliamentary committee that Downing Street had what he called a generally dismissive attitude toward the vetting concerns. Dismissive. That word is doing a lot of work here. It suggests that concerns were raised, and that someone, somewhere, chose not to act on them. The question is, how high up did that knowledge go? Because documents also reveal that Starmer's own team were warned, in writing, about the reputational risks of appointing Mandelson, given his Epstein connection. So the Prime Minister's office knew there were risks. They were warned. They proceeded anyway. Now here's the moment that turns this from a political embarrassment into something much more serious. In February 2026, just 2 months ago, Starmer stood up in Parliament and told MPs that full due process had been followed when Mandelson was vetted. Full due process. He repeated that line. His team repeated that line. But we now know, because the documents confirm it, that the independent vetting body said no. That their recommendation was overruled. That Mandelson was sent to Washington anyway. So either Starmer knew that when he said full due process, or he was so removed from one of the most sensitive appointments of his premiership that he genuinely had no idea what had happened. Neither option is good. One is deception. The other is incompetence. When asked directly this week whether he had inadvertently misled Parliament, Starmer said, and I want to read this carefully, "I did not mislead the House of Commons. I accept that information that I should have had, and information that the House should have been before the House." Read that again. He's saying the House should have had information it didn't have. But he didn't mislead them. That is a very fine line to walk. And a lot of people, including members of his own party, don't think he's walking it. So what did Starmer do when the pressure became unbearable? He sacked Ollie Robbins, the civil servant, the man who ran the Foreign Office. And here's why that matters. Robbins is a career civil servant. He has served governments of both parties for decades. He is not a politician. He doesn't fight back through press conferences or spin. When Starmer sacked him and blamed him publicly, former senior civil servants were furious. They called it what it looked like, scapegoating. And then something remarkable happened. Robbins went before a parliamentary committee, under oath, and gave his account. He said his department completed the vetting to the normal high standard. He said there was pressure to get Mandelson to Washington quickly. And after that hearing, Downing Street put out a statement saying Starmer had told his cabinet that Robbins was a man of integrity and professionalism who made an error of judgment. So within the same week, Starmer sacks him, blames him, then calls him a man of integrity. Make that make sense? Let's talk about where this leaves Starmer politically, because the numbers are brutal. Starmer is already one of the most unpopular prime ministers in modern British history. His approval ratings have been underwater for months. And now, even Labour peers, members of his own House of Lords, are calling for him to go. Lord Maurice Glasman, a Labour peer, told The Telegraph this week he cannot conceivably continue as a credible Prime Minister any longer. That is a Labour lord talking about a Labour Prime Minister. The Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has said his reputation is at stake. Opposition parties are demanding a full inquiry. And crucially, the police investigation into Mandelson is not finished. More documents are expected, which means this story isn't going away. If anything, it's just getting started. The walls are closing in. And the question is no longer whether Starmer made a mistake. He's admitted that. The question is whether he told the truth about what he knew, and when he knew it. Here's my honest take. What makes this scandal different from the usual Westminster noise is the paper trail. There are documents. There are civil servants on record. There is a timeline that keeps shifting. Starmer has admitted the appointment was wrong. That's significant. Prime ministers don't often do that. But admitting a mistake is not the same as being honest about what you knew. And that gap, between the admission and the full truth, is exactly where his credibility is collapsing. Whether you support Labour or not, you should want a Prime Minister who tells Parliament the truth. That's not partisan. That's basic. If you found this breakdown useful, not just the outrage, but the actual evidence, then subscribe. Every video on this channel goes deeper than the headlines. We follow the documents, not just the drama. I'll see you in the next one.